is like it's a lot, and I'm sharing because I have tremendous compassion, but I'm just gonna point out a quick distinction. Folks keep continue. Oh, the knowledge, and this is painful to watch. Eating vegetables, food, whether they're in community garden, is not new. This is basic. This is not new information. Many folks are running away. I'm just sharing because this is it's very uncomfortable and painful to watch. People are calling these cult leaders and saying, "I need some help. I need some help." If we have made decisions in ignorance, um, we there are many consequences that we have um, that we brought on ourselves from poor decisions or ill-informed decisions. Ill-informed decisions. So, if folks have had unprotected sex and have acquired, which is a lot of the population, have acquired STDs, going to the tropics is not necessarily going to make that go away. Um, if folks have a whole lot of children, because they were, even if it was in ignorance, weren't mature or planned when they were having their children, don't have a backup plan, going to the children is not going to save it. It's like people are going online asking people, what should I do with my life? Should I move? Should I go? What should I eat? It's something, we see it a lot in religion, and we're thinking we're getting away from it, but we're just changing the form. The responsibility for your choices is on you, it is on us. And trying to hand over your responsibility, this is one of the major ways that religious con men and pimps, poverty pimp preachers get over on folks, because we want somebody else to be responsible. People are going online and asking for a zodiac reading, as this that once you have the zodiac reading, then you don't have to be responsible for your decisions. You're going to go on a zodiac chart rather than vet somebody, ask questions, do due diligence, and observe someone's character long term over time. Again, if we put our emotions and our feelings to the side, they do have a purpose and a use. Put them to the side and use logic. Most likely, if folks didn't demonstrate maturity or discipline with their savings, their choices and relationships, then there's no demonstration that has changed. It's like when people are trying to run away from ill-informed decisions. If you make children, then we're responsible for the children we bring onto the planet, the mothers and the fathers. We're seeing the result of being irresponsible, not vetting people, not choosing well, being ill-informed. So if we think just because we go to the tropics and we're going to put it because they appear to have a certain look. We can't even say that we can vouch for these person's character. And because they have so much knowledge, the knowledge does not belong to a person. Fruits and vegetables, I'm a chef, technically trained, or that's something that I do. It's not who I am, but it's one of the roles that I play, a profession as a chef. I did not make up fruits and vegetables. The Messiah did not make up fruits and vegetables. It's common sense, whatever label you want to call yourself, to eat fruits and vegetables. So there's this mentality, this programming to put the responsibility into other people's hands. So we have to be careful of the context. Even when people say, I'm going to put it, a lot of times the context into the Most High's hands and the Messiah's hands or Jesus's hands, it absolves people of personal responsibility. And we are reaping the results and the fallout from not being responsible with our spending, with our bodies, with our time. I'm watching folks with children put their responsibility and their thinking into the hands of someone that has not demonstrated that they are responsible, that has not demonstrated that they have character. asking random people what should they do with their life that have not been qualified. So that is extremely dangerous because we're going in many are going in a state of panic. There's a created sense of urgency of leave and leave now with no plan. This is very painful to watch. I just watched a young woman go online and say, I need some help and I need to know what to do. Many of us know what to do. Stop spending money unnecessarily. Clean our houses. Plant a window garden or a garden. Join a community garden. Turn off the TV. Get some sleep. Manage our time. We can stop spending money on all the chemical things that cause cancer that we put on our scalp. We're underestimating the impact of simple decisions, but it is painful to watch people of all ages put their lives into people's hands who have not been vetted in terms of their character and who have not been qualified. They're not qualified. They're not qualified to give you instruction and guidance. They're not qualified. They have not lived long enough. And the elder Joseph Robinson, he might be living somewhere for 10 years, whatever, but he's not qualified in terms of his character. You cannot see the mishaps of the women in the stories you don't hear about. This is so dangerous. It's very dangerous. And at the end of the day, it's irresponsible. It is irresponsible to put your life in somebody else's hands. And it's most likely not going to turn out well. But then also the reality is many people don't want to think. Many of us don't want to think for ourselves, and deal with, sometimes you don't know what to do, but you can figure it out, and you can use your logic, and you can use discipline in terms of managing your resources, your body, and your time. But I just want to say this is painful to watch people putting their lives in the hands of folks who are not qualified. You're not qualifying them based on their morals and their character. It's a cognitive dissonance. It's like a disconnect. And it's a play on the emotions, and folks are moving out of desperation. As if you can wipe the other parents away. You can wipe out the poor decisions and the things that have been put in place. Has a lot of people fooled. People only show what they want you to see. That is correct. But even before social media, if we're honest, we have been being pimped out by preachers and poverty pimps for years, Overseers in terms of slave history, there's more history than slave history, put certain people in place, for management, to manage the rest of the folks. You know what I'm saying? So critical thinking applies. If that was back on the continent, if that's during slavery times, we're getting so caught up, we're being manipulated through emotions and stories. This is painful to watch. However, this is an opportunity for us to man up and woman up and really deal with, even if we made choices out of ignorance, our life is our responsibility. No one can take the responsibility for our choices. No one. It's one thing when you're a small child, but when you get to a certain age and you're conscious of what you're doing, you are going to be responsible for the children you make, the people you sleep with, how you spend your time, how you spend your money. If there's the illusion that you have all the time in the world, not to fearmonger, and you just make poor decisions in your teens and your 20s, those decisions will stay with you for a lifetime. We're putting our lives, and our young people are putting their lives in the hands of people that are not qualified to guide them in terms of morals, character. The background is criminal. Is a criminal behavior. They don't have a long track record of any kind of honor or structure of growing food. There's not a track record. They're not qualified. But again, it's not hard to manipulate people because folks are going off of emotion, not on logic. So I'm sharing this to hopefully provide some insight that hopefully can save somebody some time and some heartbreak. It's not everything do we need to learn by going through the same mistakes as our parents, and foreparents. It's not to condemn them, but we can take the lessons and make some different choices. But if you have young people around you, or even some mature adults that are thinking, of going to these places. I'm not here to tell young people what to do, but this is the mentality of putting your life in somebody else's hands to make the decisions is part of why we are stagnant and stuck as a people. We can't get something for nothing. You can't abuse this body temple and just to think that you're going to get a fresh new body temple because you say a couple of prayers and put some money in a collection plate. That very mentality, it's a get over mentality that you don't have to do any work. You don't have to do any research. It is dangerous because you're going to get what you get if you put your life in somebody else's hands. So I'm just saying because it's I have other things to do, but it was just so painful to watch, and I don't know that people are going to be honest, but it's scary, it's frightening, but the consequences are not going to go anywhere, even if we're making decisions in ignorance. But if you have children, those children are your responsibility, male and female. If you walk away with them, if us being responsible is sending a ripple effect. And part of the young people that are so broken and damaged, part of the reason they're broken and damaged is because quite often we're not choosing well and who we're choosing to parent with, and we're not prepared, right? We're not on the continent of Africa, which is a continent and a country with all kinds of varied similarities, but also different varying cultural values even within that continent. So we are caught up in romanticism, which is not based in reality. We're being very romantic and idealistic, and it's not based in any kind of reality. So perhaps a young person will get to see this. And I will also say that folks, you're going to have to pay, everybody has to pay their own way. When children get of a certain age, everybody needs to contribute to the family and be responsible. Quite often we want things to be easier for the next generation, but we want to be really conscious of the behaviors that we're modeling and just choose better. But I don't know everything, and I'm not no guru. I don't have no groups for anybody to follow, no cults. I'm not trying to be anybody's savior. I don't have the capacity to be anyone's savior. The best that I can do is share some insight. So hopefully folks have some kind of a frame of reference so that they can see the patterns when they're faced with patterns. You don't know these people on the internet, and folks are totally ignoring the glaring red flags. Questions being answered with rhetoric, the constant inconsistencies. You don't want to get down to another country and you haven't prepared. You're not educated. You're ill-informed. You don't have enough money. You don't know these people. You don't know their sexual practices or their cultural practices. You know about the money. You haven't scouted out the area. You don't know the situation with natural disasters. You don't know if the law is in English. Folks are ill prepared. But this is not just about the people who are watching on the internet, right? This is a reflection. This is a microcosm of what we're dealing with as a people in terms of being responsible. Being responsible, really. Being responsible. And just manning up and womaning up to the situation we're in. And no one can get us out but each individual, and hopefully come together organically with other folks. But you cannot come together with people that are scamming you. You cannot come together, all this pie in the sky stuff, you cannot come together with people that are molesting or raping and scamming. That doesn't work. Again, that's very idealistic. It doesn't make sense. How can you come together with someone that's violating the women and the children, or that's scamming folks out of their money? We have to wake up, develop some critical thinking, and some better litmus tests for who we trust, and develop some healthy boundaries. Greetings. So hopefully folks can replay this back and share this information with some young people or some folks around you that are contemplating this, because it's not enough for us to sit and watch this stuff like it's entertainment. We're so almost like paralyzed by entertainment, and too complacent or stuck to make any changes. We're underestimating the simplicity, the impact of eating fruits and vegetables. So if somebody else will come along and say, I'm a raw foodist of this many years, and it becomes like a religion, and you think it's something that you don't have access to. You know, I'd rather eat something with some spray on it, and wash it off with some vinegar or vegetable wash and do the best that I can with what I have until I can get to the next point, rather than be exploited and come all the way across the world to be exploited. There's YouTube. If people could see there's still small girls being married and 14 and 13 some places in Guatemala. There's different things happening politically in these other countries. We're moving out in fantasy land as a collective, as a people. And it's immature, and it's not responsible. So we're wide open to being exploited because we're not being responsible, and it's uncomfortable to watch. But we can't stay focused on that. The best we can do is share some information, work with what we have from from where we are, because everybody's not going to move to the tropics. Everybody doesn't want to move to the tropics. There are trade-offs here in terms of crime, of natural disasters. There's stuff happening all over the planet. We got to work with what we can from where we are as a collective, and allow solutions to be cultivated and nurtured out of that. That's where we have the opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to see, and have we learned our lesson with being irresponsible? Have we learned our lesson with not asking questions? Have we learned our lesson with anybody that's saying brother or sister, or that has a clergy piece on their neck, that we just, follow them blindly? Have we learned our lesson with just following somebody because they're a celebrity? Have we learned our lesson with not knowing how to read contracts and not having contracts with each other? Have we learned our lesson that you can be scammed from people that look like you, live with you, and so on? And young people, they don't have, in one sense, as much wiggle room to make certain mistakes. Once they've altered body parts, and then seen that that they want to change back, or once you put a child out here, or you have a disease, or once your savings is gone, or once your healthy body or your youth is gone, you can't get that back. So it is good to learn from the life experiences of others, and hopefully not take yourself out and jack yourself up so bad that you can't recover. So hopefully this is helpful. We have to, your life is your responsibility, nobody's else. That is a big illusion. That's a setup to be jacked up and disappointed and damaged if you're putting your life into other people's hands because they're so-called elder or raw foodists, or they're in another country. Get a plane ticket, inexpensive plane ticket, and go check it out on your own. It's not impossible. Other cultural groups and ethnic groups do it all the time, and it's not as expensive now to travel. But putting your life in somebody else's hands who you don't know is extremely dangerous. It's so dangerous, and I wouldn't trust it. I'm telling you from experience, and I'm more mature, and it was somebody who I thought was trustworthy, and I got taken to school by an elder male, this guy Joseph Robinson, and also there were many women in the cult who are deeply in, who turned a blind eye to it. So that's a very painful way to learn a lesson. And once you learn a lesson, put your emotions to the side. The folks that are right now, to be quite honest with you, that are asking for money, they have a baby. What about your babies? What about your nieces and nephews? And people are sending money to people online. No offense, I care for the babies, but what about your babies? What about your rent? What about your health? It's like we fall in love with these reality internet shows. Being responsible, that's how I was able to get up and walk out of that place. From working a job in so-called Babylon. And I heard a whole, very interesting, cult leaders control the context of the words. I heard quite an interesting take on Babylon from a man, I don't know if folks are familiar with him, Sanor Samaj. Maybe I can put the link. But a whole nother twist on Babylon. So anybody can take these books of knowledge and change the whole context and the meaning of it. As a child, last thing I'm going to say, as a child, I remember watching Roots, and I watched it again with my son when he's older. But I remember distinctly as a child in Roots, I remember saying that I peeped as, when Kunta Kinte, John Amos, got his foot cut off. And who was it? The woman that was nursing him, he got sold to the guy from the Brady Bunch, Master Reynolds. And the woman, the sister, I can't think of her name, the Caribbean woman, actress, she said, "Oh, you're gonna like it here." She had put the hot cloth, the cold rag on his face, and his foot had been cut off because he had kept running away. And she said, "You're gonna like it here. Master Reynolds, a good master. He's a good master. You're gonna like it here." Of course, Kunta Kinte, John Amos, the actor, he wasn't down with it. And I think later on in the story, some of the slaves, this next generation, went to church. And I remember as a child thinking, wait a minute, how could they all be following the same book, but somebody's the master and somebody is the slave? And I remember thinking, like, maybe they understand the book differently, because something must be, why is somebody the owner and somebody else owns somebody? So even as a child, I could see that pattern. But after you indoctrinate, after a while, all of that critical thinking cuts off. So I say that to say, master manipulators corner us up with words all the time, and it can even make you or tempt you to look past the behaviors that are right in front of your face, and you get caught up with words and justification. Well, maybe I'm not really seeing what I think I'm seeing. Maybe it's because of this, or maybe it's because of that. And you're programmed right out of your common sense, and that is definitely part of the hazing process of these cults. When you are habitually doctrinated into that pattern, after a while, people leaving the cult, they're still going to use the language because you've been taught to second guess yourself and your words and everything. It's a crazy making process. So I'm not going to go on. Just that say, your life is your responsibility. If we make decisions even in ignorance, we are responsible for it. If you were born in a certain situation a lot in life, your life is still your responsible. If you had both your parents, you didn't have your parents, if things happened to you when you were younger, your life is your responsibility. Because being stubborn and trying to prove a point to someone, sometimes you can waste a lot of life energy, and you wind up jacking yourself up as a young person to try to prove a point or to get attention. All right, folks, create a great day.